Ari, I'm glad you're here. By the way, you're live. So
yes,
um, I wondered if it was a technical glitch, but I'm thrilled that you're here. Welcome.
thank you so much for having me, Rob.
Oh, I've got 9. You say thank you now. I've got 9 pages of questions. Now, I don't know that we'll get to them all, but maybe by the end of this, you'll be cursing my name instead of thanking me. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Why don't we do this?
I love your channel. I was actually subscribed to your channel long before you invited me to come on with your viewers.
Well, thank you. Why don't we do this? Why don't you just take a minute to tell people who you are, what you do, and then the way we're going to organize this is it's going to be Medicare questions until you cry uncle, I guess. And then I do have some questions at the end about Chapter, your company, and working with brokers generally. So we'll do that at the end, but tell everyone sort of who you are and what you do.
My name is Ari Parker. I'm a co-founder and head of Medicare here at Chapter, which is the only independent, unbiased Medicare advisory in the country. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that.
Oh yeah, a lot of questions about that, no doubt.
I also wrote a short book on Medicare. It's not that complicated. It's a really short read, and you can finish it in one sitting, I think, and it provides a great overview of the Medicare system. And I think by virtue of watching our live, your viewers can actually obtain a complimentary copy of it.
Yeah, here's the book. This is actually, I think, last year's edition. Sometimes, I'll be honest, I feel like crossing out the not that, because to me, sometimes this is complicated. I'm just telling, the book is great, but below the video, you can get a free PDF of the current version. I guess you have to update it a little bit every year.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. I updated it for 2025. And so we'd love to send your viewers a copy of the most up-to-date edition of the book. Okay, but thank you for buying last year's copy.
Yeah. Well, a full confession, Kevin gave it to me for free, so I didn't pay anything. I can contribute to your favorite charity. But yeah, the PDF, the link below the video, it's free. So viewers sent in a ton of questions. And so I want to sort of throw us both into the deep end right at the beginning. Probably the most frequent question in one form or another is, should someone get traditional Medicare or Medicare Advantage? And so if a close friend or loved one called you up and said, Ari, I'm turning 65 in a month, help me figure out, should I get traditional Medicare, perhaps with a MediGap and Plan D drug policy, or should I get Medicare Advantage? How do you and how does Chapter, I guess, think through that question for folks that call you?
It always starts with your 3 Ps. Your 3 Ps are your providers, who are the doctors that you want to see. The second P is your prescriptions. What medications do you take, brand name or generic? And the final P is your priorities. What's important to you? Do you winter in Florida or Arizona? Do you own a second home? Do you have an RV and love to travel? Do you plan to go abroad for a trip soon? All of that factors into finding which is optimal between Medicare Supplement, also known as MediGap, or Medicare Advantage. And it's really an individual decision, and we have to go through we have to have a one-on-one conversation with you in order to find out what's important. Now, if someone can afford it, the most comprehensive and flexible coverage is Medicare Supplement. That's what my mom has, for example, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that.
And so when you say Medicare Supplement, that's the same thing as MediGap, right?
Yes.
And you only get that if you're on what traditional, or some would call it original Medicare.
That's right. So Medicare Supplement preserves the flexibility of original Medicare. Your network is the same as original Medicare's network. And over 93% of doctors accept original Medicare. In fact, the main group that doesn't, pediatricians.
Oh, really? And why is that?
Because Medicare is typically for those 65 and up.
Of course. What am I thinking? That'll probably get replayed over and over again, that dumb question. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so you mentioned if one of the questions is, does someone want to travel?
Yes.
So if someone says, yeah, I do, I winter in Florida or I travel a lot, does that weigh towards traditional Medicare or Medicare Advantage?
Absolutely. If someone likes to travel, if their grandchildren live in a different state, if they want to get a second opinion somewhere else, for example, I live in Arizona. If I wanted to get a second opinion at MD Anderson, which is probably the nation's leading cancer research institute in Texas, I would certainly want to be on a Medicare supplement plan because that way I don't need anyone's permission in order to get a second opinion. And it's also networkless.
Right. So again, we're talking about traditional Medicare with MediGap plan in that context.
Yes, yes. So let's take a step back for a moment. Picture Medicare as a three-legged stool. There are three legs to the stool, and you need all three legs in order to have comprehensive coverage. The first leg of the stool is your inpatient coverage. That's Part A. The second leg, outpatient coverage. What happens outside of the hospital? Visits to the doctor, visits to specialists. That's Medicare Part B, and there's a monthly charge for Part B. It's $185 per month. And then the third leg of the stool is Medicare Part D, D as in drugs. And you can only get Part D from a private insurance company. It doesn't come directly from the government, unlike Part A and Part B. So Part A and Part B come directly from the government. Part A is usually premium free as long as you or your spouse has worked 10 plus years and paid federal payroll taxes. And then there's a monthly charge for Part B. And that monthly charge is $185 per month for this year, and there's no family plan. So if you and your spouse are on Part B, you each owe $185 per month. And if you're a high earner, you owe more.
Right. Okay. And are there, so traditional Medicare with a MediGap policy is the most comprehensive. You're not limited to networks. You can go anywhere that accepts Medicare. So if someone can afford, let's assume someone says, Ari, price is no object. I've heard MediGap, and traditional Medicare would be more expensive than in terms of premiums than Medicare Advantage, but that's okay. Money is no object. Are there still situations where a Medicare Advantage plan might be preferable?
If money is no object?
Even if money is no object.
If money is no object, then what the vast majority of people do is purchase a Medicare supplement plan, also known as MediGap, that sits on top of original Medicare and covers the 20% you would otherwise owe out of pocket. And that 20% can be very significant. If you have a knee replacement, it's a $50,000 procedure. So you'd owe $10K out of pocket if you don't have some type of additional coverage. Right. If you go that route, then you just need to add a standalone prescription drug plan.
Yeah.
So my saying is marry your MediGap, date your drug plan.
Okay.
The MediGap plan you sign up for is probably going to be the plan that you have for the long haul. And if you're turning 65, then you probably are going to have that plan for 30 to 35 years because that's how long actuarial tables suggest you're going to live. Right. Every fall, we want to shop your drug plan. The fall is the time to date your drug plan.
Okay. And does Chapter and other brokers help people find a drug plan? Is that one of the types of policies that brokers help with?
Most brokers, sadly, won't help you find a drug plan at this point.
Why is that?
Instead, they're going to point you to Medicare.gov, which is really a shame. And we're hearing this happen more and more. And the reason they're not going to help you shop for a Part D plan is because many of those plans aren't commissionable, meaning that these brokerages aren't making money off of them. So they advise their agents not to spend time on them. And instead, they point you to Medicare.gov to do it on your own. That's not how we do things at Chapter.
Interesting. Okay. And what about someone that says, hey, during my working years, I had an HMO, Kaiser, let's say. And that's where my doctor is. I actually like the doctors there. I've been going there. This is a hypothetical. I don't have Kaiser. I actually did. We actually did maybe 20 years ago. But if someone told you that, they said, we really want to stick with those Kaiser doctors, does that then suggest a Medicare Advantage plan, or can you go to a closed HMO network with traditional Medicare?
Kaiser is a special snowflake. Kaiser is a closed network. So if someone is happy with Kaiser, then we would help them find Kaiser's Medicare Advantage plan.
Okay.
Kaiser doesn't accept original Medicare. If you
Okay.
want to continue going to Kaiser as an institution, then you would want to choose Kaiser's Medicare Advantage plan. And that's exactly the type of conversation we'd have with someone, especially if they've used Kaiser for decades and they have their trusted providers through Kaiser.
Okay. So one of the complaints I've read about over and over again is that brokers in general push folks towards advantage plans because the fees that brokers can earn are higher with an advantage plan than, say, with a MediGap policy. In your experience, is that a fair criticism of the industry overall? And what's your and Chapter's perspective on that in terms of how you operate at Chapter?
Someone who's turning 65 today is bombarded by unsolicited phone calls, spam text messages, and direct mailers. What they're being pitched is a plan that probably isn't based on the person's 3 Ps. In order to decide what type of coverage is optimal, we need to have a one-on-one conversation about what's important to you to get covered as you start Medicare. And so it starts with an education-first approach. And when we started Chapter 6 years ago, this wasn't happening at all. I know my mom, she got no Medicare guidance, and as a result has a 20% lifetime late enrollment penalty because she didn't sign up timely for Medicare. She didn't think that she needed to do anything. So it starts by taking an education-first approach and helping people sign up for Medicare if they're not going to remain on their work-provided coverage, and we'll get into that. And then second, helping them choose between Medicare Supplement or Medicare Advantage, because there's only 2 types of additional coverage, but either is superior than just having straight Medicare, because under straight Medicare, you owe at least 20% of your costs out of pocket. Now, our North Star is always acting in your viewers' best interest. We've been doing that from day one, and we will continue to do that till the end of the earth. So what we need to do then is go based on your 3 Ps and sort based on every insurance company and every plan to narrow to the single best fitting plan for your needs. And we're the only advisory that can say that they do that.
Well, okay, and I appreciate that, but it still raises the question. Well, let me ask it this way: let's just look at some stats. Like, what percentage of new enrollees today end up on an advantage plan? Just generally, not specific to Chapter. Do you
about
have
50-50?
50-50?
Yes.
And do you have the same stats for Chapter? Like, how many of Chapter's clients end up on choose Medicare Advantage?
It's slightly weighted towards Medicare Supplement rather than Medicare Advantage. Again, this would depend on the type of person that we're working with, though. Yeah. For example, if someone is on Medicare and Medicaid, meaning that they're also low income, then there is probably a Medicare Advantage plan that coordinates benefits between Medicare and Medicaid in a way that would significantly help their health outcomes.
So if someone's on Medicaid, it's more like, I don't know if I'm wording this correctly, but it could be that an Advantage plan is actually preferable over traditional Medicare.
If someone's on Medicaid, it's illegal for them to purchase a Medicare Supplement plan.
Oh, it's illegal. They can't buy MediGap.
Well, they can buy it, but then it won't work with their Medicaid. It's not designed to work with their Medicaid.
Interesting.
The option there would be either having Medicare and Medicaid or having a Medicare Advantage plan that coordinates benefits between Medicare and Medicaid. These are called dual special needs plans. They're a specific flavor of Medicare Advantage. And they can really go a long way towards helping someone who needs transportation, for example, or extra dental.
Okay. So let's talk about just for a few minutes about when someone should sign up. So I've gotten a lot of emails from folks saying, hey, I'm going to turn 65 soon, but I still have my job. I have healthcare through my employer. Do I have to sign up for Medicare when I turn 65? And I know there's this issue between small companies and large companies. Can you just help walk us through that?
Rule of 20. If you or your spouse work for an employer with 20 or more employees, then you have an exception to delay starting Medicare. Then you can delay Medicare. If you work for a small employer, meaning 19 or fewer, or your spouse does, if you're self-employed, if you're an independent contractor, if you're on the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, if you're on COBRA, you have to sign up for Medicare by way of turning 65. Very important. It's one of the biggest mistakes we help people avoid. Because if you don't sign up timely, then you may be subject to a lifetime late enrollment penalty on both Medicare Part B and Medicare Part D.
Part D for drugs. Okay. And the Part D penalty is, I think, is 1% a month after you're off prescription. What is it? A creditable drug plan for so many days?
Yeah, and again, so much of this is learning the lingo. Creditable means at least as good as what you would have received from your employer provided coverage. And your employer is required to tell you, or your spouse's employer, as to whether their employer plan is at least as good as what you would receive from Medicare Part D. And they're required to keep that notice on file for 10 years.
Okay, good to know. And then Part B, that it's when you don't have Part B for a full 12 months, right? You get, is it a 10% penalty?
Yeah, 10% per year for every 12 months you don't have it. So my mom didn't have it for 28 months, and as a result has a 20% lifetime penalty on her Part
Yeah,
B.
and it's lifetime. It never goes away. Okay. I'm just crossing off questions as I go through them.
These question.
What's that?
These are great questions. Did your listeners, did your viewers send these in advance?
I learned so much from their questions. But largely what I learned was how little I know, but I learned other things too. So question 2, so Medicare is individual. There's no family plan under Medicare, I've learned. And so what if a spouse turns 65, they're going to retire, they were the employed spouse, the health insurance was through their employer, but they turned 65, they retired, and they sign up for Medicare. But their spouse, let's say he or she is 62, so they can't sign up for Medicare. Are they sort of on their own to either maybe do COBRA or Affordable Care Act, Marketplace, or how does that work?
They have several options for the 62-year-old. The 62-year-old can COBRA, and because they are COBRAing as a result of their working spouse starting Medicare, they're entitled to COBRA for up to 36 months, which could bridge the gap to when they turn 65 and start Medicare.
Okay.
So I really enjoyed the technicality you added there.
Yeah, I didn't pick 62 on purpose. That was actually the age of the person who sent this question to me.
No. This is Stump the Schwab. This is great.
Yeah.
The second option is one you mentioned, the Affordable Care Act. We can see if they might be able to bridge the gap to COBRA through the Affordable Care Act exchange.
Yeah.
Of course, the networks are very limited under many of those Affordable Care Act plans. So it's going to depend on how much care they need and what doctors they want to go to. And then another option you mentioned is purchasing a private plan, though many of these private plans are subject to insurability questions. So it's going to depend on the health of the 62-year-old. And then there's other options as well. For example, Christian ministry plans.
Yeah.
But those technically aren't insurance.
Yeah. Okay. So if someone says, all right, I'm going to work past 65, I work for a large employer, so I won't be penalized if I wait to sign up for Medicare, but my health care insurance through my employer is awful. I don't like it. Can I sign up for Medicare at 65, even though I keep working?
Totally. It happens all the time for precisely the reason you mentioned. You can always do an apples to apples comparison between what your health insurance would look like if you were to start Medicare versus remaining on your work provided coverage. And you can leave your work provided coverage at any time in order to start Medicare. You don't have to wait until your employer's open enrollment period.
Good. Okay. I want to talk for just a minute about traveling abroad because you alluded to that. My understanding is that apart from maybe an emergency situation, traditional Medicare Part A and B and Medicare Advantage plans don't cover, healthcare overseas, except for maybe an emergency. Is that correct?
Some Medicare Advantage plans may offer an urgent care benefit when you're abroad. In general, though, the Medicare Advantage plan is going to be limited to it's going to be very, very limited outside of the United States, and it's going to vary based on the specific plan and that plan's terms and conditions.
Okay.
Because Medicare Advantage is managed care subject to the private insurance company's terms and conditions. It's a replacement for original Medicare. In contrast, under certain MediGap plan letter types, which are standardized under federal law, the most comprehensive one for someone who's turning 65 is MediGap plan letter G. G as in George. It includes 80% international coverage for the first 60 days that you're abroad, subject to a $50,000 lifetime limit. So, Rob, can I tell a story real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we had a client last summer who was traveling in France, and they suffered a heart condition and they needed to be hospitalized for almost 2 weeks at a hospital outside Paris. Because they had MediGap Plan G, we were able to help them get $24,000 in reimbursement. So it didn't ruin their trip.
Okay. So really, if you travel overseas a lot, that weighs in favor of a MediGap traditional Medicare kind of plan.
Yes. In addition, though, I also still recommend trip insurance. It's not something we offer here at Chapter. You might even have it through your credit card, though. And trip insurance can go a long way towards helping you, especially if you need to be medevaced back to the United States, for example, which can easily run close to 6 figures.
So I want to share a story that a viewer sent in on this issue, and I'm going to see if I can do this. Let's see. Yeah, I've just put up a number you can call if you want to reach out to Chapter. It's also below the video. And they are a partner of this channel, so keep that in mind. I don't know if that's how you weigh that, but I always like to disclose that. So a viewer emailed me. They were in South America, and they had a serious health issue. They were on traditional Medicare with a MediGap policy. Their question stemmed around how they got paid, because apparently, even though they knew Medicare wasn't going to cover, the expenses, they were required to first submit. This is what they're sharing with me, that they had to first submit the cost to Medicare. And they had to wait 60 days. I think they said 60 days before they got denied. And it took the full 60 days. It could have been 90. Yes. And then they could submit to MediGap. And MediGap had, maybe it was one of them had 60 days. The other one had 90. And the MediGap policy took the full time. Plus they had to get documents translated into Portuguese. In this case, I believe it was Portuguese. And eventually they got their money. But their question was, is this really kind of how it goes? Is this just the reality in this sort of situation?
This is why it's so important to have an advocate on your side who knows the ins and outs of the different insurance companies. What we have here at Chapter is not just the Medicare advisor that you work with and discuss your 3 Ps with to help you find the single best fitting plan, but also a dedicated concierge team to help you with any questions or hiccups that come up along the way. So instead, in this example, of your client calling the insurance company and having to get these documents translated and spending time submitting these claims both to Medicare and to their MediGap insurer, our member advocate team would have handled all of that, just like we did for the client who was hospitalized in France.
So if someone gets insurance through you provide services ongoing after that?
Yes, year-round, 365 days.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay.
And we also proactively reach out to help with renewals, right? Because the fall is the time that you can shop your coverage from October 15th to December 7th. And so we want to make sure that all our members review their coverage and take advantage of the upcoming changes, specifically to Medicare Part D.
Okay. I want to switch a little bit. So some folks have certain types of coverage like TriCare for life, or they might have federal health care that continues into retirement. And there could be other examples, but I get a lot of questions around that and whether how that might influence their choice between Medicare, traditional Medicare with a MediGap policy, and an Advantage plan. And I don't know if it varies depending on exactly what they have. We could start with TriCare for life, or I don't know how this, but can you walk through how that should influence someone's thinking on the type of Medicare to get?
Let's start with TriCare for life. Who does TriCare for life apply to? This is for retired service members, meaning they served our country for 20 years or more and retired with the military. If you are a retired service member, or you have a spouse that's also covered by TriCare for life, all that you or your spouse need to do is activate your Medicare Part B. You will then receive a $0 premium Medicare supplement plan from the government and prescription drug coverage. So you don't need to do anything else.
That sounds
And
wonderful.
we wouldn't want you to do anything else.
Okay.
And we have actually tried to, there are some insurance companies that have advertised plans that specifically target retired service members. It is much, much better in order to keep your $0 Medicare supplement premium that you received by virtue of your military service.
So
Then,
someone with TriCare for life, you don't want to get an Advantage plan.
no,
Okay.
no. Keep your TriCare for life. Keep your $0 premium Medicare supplement plan. It is the most comprehensive and flexible coverage you could have. And you also receive excellent drug coverage from the government as a thank you for your service.
Yeah. Okay. What about FEHB? I'm looking at a question right now that, they have federal employee health benefits. They're retiring. Their spouse is on CHAMP VA. I don't know if that's I guess CHAMP VA. They're eligible. And part of the question is, when should they apply for Medicare, and how does those federal employee benefits affect sort of the decision-making process?
So different situations. For CHAMP VA, you would also want to activate your Medicare Part B. Now let's talk about a separate situation, which is federal employee health benefits. For those federal employee retirees, so you can keep, if you're happy with your FEH plan that you received by virtue of your government service, and this is going to vary depending on which department within the government that you worked for. But if you're broadly happy with that FEH plan, then you can keep that plan. And the only question is whether to sign up for Medicare Part B or not. And so we have a simple 2 to 3 page FAQ sheet that walks you through whether to activate your Medicare Part B or not. And that decision is up to you. Just be aware that if you don't activate your Medicare Part B, then there would be a late enrollment penalty if you change your mind later on.
Okay.
But it's broadly split as to how many federal employees choose to activate their Part B or to just stick with their FEH coverage.
If they activate Part B, is that effectively saying I want to stop my federal coverage and start Part B, so such that they also need to buy a MediGap policy, or probably
No.
good?
Their primary coverage would be Medicare. Their secondary coverage would be the FEH plan.
Okay. So in that sense, it would function similar to TriCare for life, in the sense that the federal employee benefit would act as their supplemental coverage.
Yes. The difference here is that the FEH retiree coverage tends to be quite expensive. I've seen premiums of more than $325 per month for that FEH blue plan.
I see. Do you know if it typically covers drugs, or would they also have to get a Part D plan to cover drugs?
It also includes drugs.
Okay.
And
All right.
that drug coverage is considered creditable, at least as good. So they don't need to sign up for a Medicare Part D plan. Instead, their FEH coverage comes with prescriptions.
Okay. I just noticed in the chat, one person asked if Chapter helps with ACA plans. Or are you just strictly Medicare?
We provide resources for those who are under age 65. And we actually have a third-party partner that can help you sign up for the Affordable Care Act plan of your choosing. Okay. We are focused exclusively on providing Medicare guidance at Chapter.
So one of the benefits that's often marketed for Advantage plans is the dental and the vision and maybe hearing. If someone goes with traditional Medicare, they don't have coverage, at least not through the government, for those things, at least as far as I understand. Maybe, I don't know. I guess I have two questions. Are there MediGap? I don't think they are, but are there MediGap policies that cover that? And if not, do they, where do they go to find that kind of coverage if they want it?
There's no MediGap plan that covers dental, vision, or hearing because original Medicare doesn't cover dental, vision, or hearing. And your MediGap plan covers the 20% that original Medicare doesn't. Okay. So that's number one. I think the second question is, should I buy dental, vision, standalone coverage? And do you want to get into that?
Well, can you give me your thoughts at a high level? I mean, I will tell you that my wife and I don't have dental or vision. We just pay out of pocket because I kind of personally find the insurance not all that valuable. But that's just me. And other people buy it. And yeah, do they just go out on the public marketplace and find some coverage?
Here's my rule of thumb for purchasing standalone dental or vision. The benefits that you receive from the coverage need to outweigh the monthly premium you're paying to your dental, vision, standalone insurer. If you're just going for cleanings, oftentimes that policy is very favorable to the insurance company and not very favorable to you. So I wouldn't buy one either.
Yeah. Okay. Health savings accounts. This has really tripped people up. So help us understand when you should stop contributing to an HSA in relation to signing up for Medicare.
Rob, I love HSAs. I contribute to one here at Chapter. So what is an HSA? An HSA is a health savings account, and you can use all the money that you accumulate in your HSA for any qualified medical expense. You can also invest it, let it compound, and then use that for any qualified medical expense for when you retire. So HSAs, making active contributions to an HSA, is not compatible with starting any part of Medicare. Here's the rule of thumb. If you're turning 65 and you want to start Medicare, discontinue contributions to your HSA the month before you turn 65. So, Rob, if you were turning 65 in October, you would just need to discontinue contributions at the end of this month. If someone were turning 65 on December 23rd, they would just need to discontinue contributions at the end of November. This rule gets more complicated, though, if you're past age 65. Because if you're past age 65, then your Medicare Part A gets backdated by up to 6 months. And if you're past 65 and a half, then your Part A is going to be backdated by a full 6 months. So I was just helping someone earlier today. They're planning to discontinue work at the end of January. They're contributing to an HSA. They were shocked to learn that they already needed to stop their contributions to their HSA. Because technically, when we help them apply to enroll in Medicare in January, so that way they have continuous coverage that begins February 1st, the government is going to backdate that person's Part A to July 1st. So they already needed to do something with their HSA. They can't make active contributions to their HSA as of the end of June because they're past age 65, and so the government is going to backdate their Part A by 6 months.
All
now,
right, so I have to add,
real quick, if someone's taking Social Security automatically turns on your Part A. So if you're taking Social Security and you're making active contributions to an HSA, you're at risk of violating the rule against contributing to HSAs once you start any part of Medicare. And it's a real headache to unwind those excess contributions. I write about this at length, and it's not that complicated. So if you're taking Social Security, just know that the government's going to turn your Medicare on when you reach 65.
I laughed because we're going through all these complications, and you've said I wrote about it in it's not that complicated. But in fairness, you do have the word "that" in the title, so that it
needs to be italicized. I agree.
Yeah, you're a lawyer. I was a trial lawyer for 25 years, and so we put a lot of weight on single words in our so that's good. Yeah, the HSA thing is tricky. And so I'm going to ask a question. And maybe, I don't know if you know the answer, we'll find out. But as a lawyer, sometimes people would ask me, well, why is it this way? And I would say, yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. It's just the way it is. So why does the government backdate Part A for 6 months? Why do they do that?
So HSAs are becoming more and more popular. Over 20% of the population actually now has an employer-provided plan that offers an HSA. So they're becoming increasingly common. And the reason why the government backdates Part A is because it's broadly helpful to have Part A backdated. Because what if you're hospitalized? If you were hospitalized, but you hadn't turned on your Medicare, then guess what? Because of the backdating, your hospitalization would be subject to a deductible under Medicare Part A. So even though it's incompatible with starting an HSA, starting Medicare is incompatible with making active contributions to an HSA, it is still net valuable that the government backdates Medicare Part A.
Yeah, and maybe it's just the way it is, and I should stop focusing on this. But so if I'm hospitalized at 65 in 3 months and I turn on Part A 2 months later, it would cover that hospitalization from 2 months ago.
When did you turn 65 in this example?
The hospitalization was 65 in 3 months. I started Part A at whatever, 65 in 5 months.
Okay, yeah. So let's say that you let's take this example a little. Let's shape this a little bit.
Yeah.
So Rob, let's pretend your birthday is December 23rd for the purposes of this example. That's when you're turning 65. You are hospitalized in February, heavens forbid, and you didn't do anything with respect to your Medicare. So you would say, Ari, I didn't do anything. What should I do? And you apply to enroll in Medicare at that point in time. You're still in your initial enrollment period. The government would backdate your Part A to December 1st. So you would still receive some relief for that hospitalization that you experienced in February.
Yeah. But they don't backdate Part B.
Correct. It's a big deal. They do not backdate Part D. They do not backdate Part B or Part D.
Yeah. Because when you go to the hospital, a lot of the charges are actually going to be Part B charges, right? Not just Part A.
At the hospital, the charges are going to go to Part A.
Including doctors that come in and visit you, and everything is at Part A?
For services that you receive when you're inpatient, it goes to Medicare Part A. It means you have a wristband at the hospital. If you don't have a wristband, you're being held for observation, and Medicare doesn't cover being held for observation.
So you got to get that wristband.
The wristband's key.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm just going through this. So, okay, here's a question. So one thing I didn't realize until I started really studying this was that most Medicare Advantage plans, which I'd heard negative things about, are either an HMO or PPO. I guess they have what, HMO point of service, kind of hybrid maybe, but outside of Medicare, at least in my experience, HMOs and PPOs don't necessarily have a bad reputation, at least from what I can tell. But once you put them inside of Medicare and Advantage plan, all of a sudden they have a bad reputation, or at least for many. Is that your sense? And why is there a difference? I mean, or is there a significant difference between HMOs and PPOs during our working years that we get to an employer and HMOs and PPOs we might buy as part of Medicare Advantage?
Well, that's so interesting that you go to your experience having been on an HMO or PPO with your employer plan, because I personally can't wait to be on Medicare. I'm so sick of the network restrictions under my employer coverage, and that I've experienced those restrictions for 20 to 30 years doesn't make me any less agitated with them or excited to experience coverage without those network restrictions.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for me, it's just a cost issue. So I wouldn't have an HMO today for that very reason. With a PPO, I can go to anyone I want. I just pay more. So certainly from a cost perspective, I can't wait for traditional Medicare, which my wife and I will both choose, along with a Plan G. But I just was curious about that. One thing I've heard is that the
so you want to talk philosophically about
sure.
the employer, the way in which network restrictions are
Sure,
set up?
I minored in philosophy. I'm happy to get philosophical.
Yeah, so these are cost containment techniques, right?
Yeah.
The employer, if they're a large employer, right, they're negotiating with these providers, or the insurance company is negotiating on their behalf in order to create a cost structure that is amenable to the employer and not necessarily to the employees.
Yeah.
And under Medicare Advantage, right, this is managed care. So this is where we're in the world of HMOs or PPOs, and we're subject to that insurance company's terms and conditions. And with two lawyers here, we know that those terms and conditions are what you live and die by.
Yeah.
Those terms and conditions are the letter of the law. And so if those network restrictions can change, they can even change mid-year. And so if you've been on a Medicare Advantage plan, it's just really important to review it during the fall, because that's your time. Yeah. The second thing that I want to mention here is prior authorizations. There were over 50 million prior authorization claims in 2023 alone. And those prior authorizations are essentially a veto on what type of care you and your doctor think that you should receive, because then you have to petition the insurance company to go ahead and allow you to receive the care that you need.
Yeah.
And original Medicare isn't subject to those.
Well,
the standard is medical necessity.
Well, and you hit on a point, because at least what I've read is that prior authorization seems to be a bigger issue for HMOs and PPOs that are part of a Medicare Advantage plan on the one hand than it is for HMOs and PPOs that are purchased through employers. And that particularly for large employers and large unions, they can actually exert some influence on these healthcare insurance companies that you may not get in the context of Medicare. Now, I don't have any personal experience on that, so I don't know if it's true. That's just what some of my research brought up, was that this prior authorization becomes a real issue in the context of Medicare Advantage plans, again, depending on what your health issue is.
Yes. It's certainly different in Medicare Advantage land than compared to an employer plan, potentially.
So the big thing that I think worries people is that if you choose an Advantage plan and you later change your mind, you may or may not be able to pick, you may not qualify for a MediGap plan, or it could be very expensive because of medical underwriting. So my first question is, can you walk us through when you can switch from an Advantage plan back to traditional Medicare and get a MediGap plan, they call it what, guaranteed issue, without medical underwriting? What are the circumstances when you can do that?
Two-part question here. First, you can switch from Medicare Advantage back to original Medicare from October 15th to December 7th.
Right.
Your new coverage will begin January 1st. So the time to execute that change is between October 15th to December 7th. And I don't recommend waiting until Thanksgiving. Do it before then.
Okay.
Now, in terms of getting a Medicare supplement plan, if you go to original Medicare, you're going to owe at least 20% of your medical costs out of pocket. So if you want to get a Medicare supplement plan, then the best time to do it is when you first start Medicare, because that's your MediGap open enrollment period, which is your golden ticket in order to sign up for a Medicare supplement plan without any questions about your insurability, meaning you don't have to answer those thorny questions about your recent health history or disclose chronic conditions, and the carrier can't price discriminate against you.
Okay.
So the best time to do it is when you first start Medicare, either turning 65 or coming off your work provided coverage if you're past 65.
And you have 6 months from when you start Part B and are 65 or older, right?
Yes, it's a 6-month period.
Okay.
And that's your golden ticket.
Right.
Now, let's talk about those who took a bet on their health. Maybe they were happy with their Medicare Advantage plan for several years, and now that they're in their 70s, perhaps, they're reevaluating the coverage that they first selected. In 46 states, an insurance company is entitled to ask you questions about your health history if you want to switch to a Medicare supplement plan. So this isn't like a life insurance exam where someone comes and draws your labs. It's 7 to 10 questions about your recent health history. And these questions vary insurance company by insurance company. And this is something our advisors have at the touch of our fingertips. Now, if I mentioned 46 states, what are the 4 states where you can purchase a Medicare supplement plan any time of year? Those 4 states are New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Maine. In those 4 states, they have guaranteed issue, meaning a carrier can't ask you questions about your health history. As a result, Medicare supplement costs a lot more in those 4 states than elsewhere.
Yeah. I think if I lived there, I don't know, if I were healthy, I might think I'll just get an Advantage plan and switch if I get really sick. I guess the possible downside is what if I get sick in January and have to wait a whole nother year?
That's right, because you would need a period in order to switch off of your Medicare Advantage plan. But you just mentioned one, actually. You get if you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, then you have a second chance to adjust your coverage between January 1st and March 31st, which is called the Medicare Advantage open enrollment period. And during that time, you could also execute the change and then sign up for a standalone prescription drug plan.
Okay. Now, I know I think am I correct that the first time you sign up for a Medicare Advantage plan, you have a 12-month trial period where you could switch back to traditional retirement and get a MediGap plan without answering those 7 to 10 medical questions?
If you do it at 65, that's accurate.
Yeah.
You also get a Medicare Advantage trial period if you come off a Medicare supplement plan and choose a Medicare Advantage plan, then you get a year to trial it. And if you don't like it, you can switch back to your Medicare supplement plan, the previous one that you had.
And I've also heard that if you're on a Medicare Advantage plan and you lose coverage for no fault of your own, the insurance company goes out of business, they shut down that particular plan that you're on and terminate it. You have a certain number of days where you could go back to traditional Medicare and get a supplement without medical underwriting. Is that right?
That's right. The examples you mentioned would be a guaranteed issue situation where you would be entitled to select a Medicare supplement plan and choose a standalone prescription drug plan.
Okay. The other thing I heard, which kind of surprised me a little bit, but I guess it makes sense. But if you move outside of your network, your say your HMO network or PPO network, that also gives you the right. And so I'm thinking it gives you the right to buy MediGap policy without an underwriting. And I'm thinking, do you know people that moved specifically so they could get a MediGap policy?
Oh, I don't want to touch this question.
Why is this a what's wrong?
It's not something. Has it happened? Yes, I'm sure it's happened. Can we advise people to do that?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. See, that's the lawyer in me. I see the rules and I figure, okay, how can I make this work for me?
You see the loopholes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Deadpools. What are Deadpools? I guess is this only in the context of MediGap or primarily in the context of MediGap, and what are they and how do you avoid one?
Okay. This is a great question. So if you're turning 65, if you're recently departing your work provided coverage and it's time to sign up for a Medicare supplement plan, we want to help you optimize this decision very closely because you're making a 30 to 35 year decision. The MediGap plan that you sign up for when you first start Medicare is probably the plan that you're going to have for the long haul. So we want to look at not just today's price, but also historical information based on your demographics as to how an insurance company may raise premiums. And of course, this is going to depend based on the rating model that the insurance company uses. So what we do here at Chapter is we look at your 20-year sum of premium index. So that means we take your age today and we add 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years, and then we sum those premiums together to give us a basis for comparing across your Medicare supplement options. Because remember, MediGap is standardized under federal law. Each plan letter type is standardized. So the insurance companies aren't varying on the hospital and medical benefits they offer you. What they're really competing on is their price. They're competing on their creditworthiness. And then, of course, they're spending a lot of time competing on their branding and marketing, which you can pay an arm and a leg for with some carriers.
Right.
So you mentioned Deadpools. Deadpools are when an insurance company closes a risk pool. If they close the risk pool, they're not admitting new members into that pool. So let's use one, for example, MediGap plan letter F. Some of your viewers are going to be on plan letter F. Plan letter G is the replacement for F. G is identical to F with one difference. F covers the Part B annual deductible, which is $257 for this year, whereas G does not. So if you're paying more than $257 in premium for plan letter F, then it is to your advantage to switch to plan letter G if you're healthy enough to qualify. Because plan F isn't admitting new 65-year-olds.
Right.
If you turn 65 after January 1st, 2020, then the most comprehensive plan letter type you can get is plan letter G.
Okay.
So that would be an example of a Deadpool.
But so that's a Deadpool at the plan level, though. F
Yes.
versus G. But can there be
Yes.
Deadpools within insurance companies and certain plans? And how do you avoid those? Or
Yes,
is
and
it
some
just
of
the
them
luck
are
of the draw?
notorious. Some of these insurance companies are notorious for creating those dead letters, those Deadpools.
So it's more likely with some insurance companies than others.
Yes, and actually, this can be published at Medicare supplement is regulated state by state, and states require the supplement insurer to publish information about their risk pools. And so if you have a Deadpool, then, for example, the state of Ohio is great at sharing information about which of these carriers have created those Deadpools and what that's doing to your premiums. And that's something we also want to discuss with you if you're considering one of those insurance companies.
So Chapter has that data, and that's part of the discussion as to which specific, let's say, Part G plan or Plan G plan you're going to get.
Yes. So it's not just about the broad Medicare knowledge about plan letter F versus plan letter G. It's also a discussion of insurance company by insurance company. And we don't know what inflation will be, right? Regulators always approve premium increases based on inflation. And do you know what inflation is going to be next year?
I do, but I'm told I can't tell anyone. It's right. No, I get it. I mean, because I guess there's no way, I guess, to ensure 100% that you're going to avoid a Deadpool.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Right.
So,
but it's highly consequential if you find yourself in one, because your premiums are going to accelerate more quickly than a risk pool that's admitting younger, likely healthier 65-year-olds.
And if you have health issues, you might not be able to change.
Correct. In 46 states.
Right.
Now, some states some states, approximately 13 of them, have created opportunities for people to switch, though.
Oh, okay.
And so this is information, this is a state-by-state information that our advisors, because we're nationwide, have at the touch of their fingertips. And if your state has an anniversary rule that allows you to switch, or a birthday rule that allows you to switch, then we can bring options to you that keep identical coverage, but may offer a lower price.
Good. Okay. Are there, and I'm just looking at the chat here. I can see other questions popping up. By the way, if you want to ask, what's that?
Please, I'm noticing in the chat, someone posted like a PDF of the book, which I love.
Oh,
thank you to whoever created an online PDF. I'm actually going to share this myself. So thank you.
That is Matt. He helps with the channel, and Matt, thank you for doing that. But if someone wants me to ask Ari a question, put @RobBurger in your chat, because it pops up orange and I can see it. The one question that just came up as we were discussing Deadpools was whether, in your experience, some states tend to offer better supplemental insurance options than other states, or does it not really play out that way?
It doesn't play out that way because each MediGap plan letter type is standardized under federal law.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to give a shout out to one of your commenters, Dave, who mentioned, this is really important, even if you don't take any prescriptions, make sure you have Medicare Part D coverage. And there are Part D plans, depends where you live, but there are Part D plans as low as $0 premium.
Yeah.
And that way you at least have prescription coverage in case you have a medication added during the course of the year, and you avoid that lifetime late enrollment penalty for Medicare Part D.
Yeah, very important. So one viewer sent me this question. Their view is that getting traditional Medicare without a supplement plan can be a good way to go if you're, of course, willing to self-insure to some extent. And they gave me some examples, but the point that they were making is even if you go into the hospital for a knee replacement or whatever, Part A is going to cover the hospital other than the deductible. You know, you might have some Part B expenses associated with that knee issue. You're going to go to an orthopedist, you're going to get whatever. So yeah, you're going to have to pay 20% of the allowed amount. But their point was, how often does that happen? And so I guess maybe to some extent they're just taking a risk. Not only you could have something much worse happen. Is there ever a situation where you would say that's a good idea? Pick traditional Medicare over an Advantage plan, but don't get a supplement?
No.
Okay.
You would owe 20% out of pocket for your medical costs if you just had original Medicare. And then let's talk about if you're inpatient. If you're inpatient, it's $0 premium for Medicare Part A for the vast majority of Americans, but there's a deductible, and that deductible is nothing to sneeze at. It's approximately $1,700 for each hospitalization. And so if you're hospitalized multiple times over the course of the year, let's say 3 times, now we're talking about over $5,000 potentially just for those inpatient hospitalizations, not to mention all the care that you're probably receiving outpatient, which you would owe 20% of as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think my concern on that with Part A is that, you know, you get after the deductible, it's $0 up to what? I think the first, is it 60 days in the hospital? But I mean, eventually you're paying over $400 a day and then over $800. And like, if you were really sick and in the hospital a long time, eventually you exhaust Part A, right?
Well, you're still subject to that deductible if you're
right, sure.
Hospital. Yeah, you're still subject to it. And then yes, if you're hospitalized for more than a certain period of time, you will pay more per day if you don't have some type of additional coverage. Now, there is, I do want to go back to that question about if someone is on Medicare and Medicaid, then that might be a situation where they just stick with their original Medicare and Medicaid, because their Medicaid then becomes responsible for the 20%. It's going to depend on the providers that they want to see and what type of additional care they may need.
All right. I'm going to turn to the chat. Some great questions. Do you guys help with, and can you talk about Medicare options for folks who have a disability and they're not 65 yet?
Yeah.
How does that work?
So there are 72 million people on Medicare. 13 million people have Medicare younger than 65 by way of disability. So it is actually very common that someone has Medicare by way of disability and is younger than 65. Now, in that situation, it's still going to be important to evaluate your options for additional coverage. But in many, many states, you're actually restricted from getting a Medicare supplement plan. Because remember, your MediGap open enrollment period, that golden ticket to buy a Medicare supplement plan, in many states, it really kicks in when you turn 65.
Right.
So if you're younger than 65, a Medicare Advantage plan would be something to consider, because that way you still have maximum out-of-pocket protection on your hospital and medical costs for the year, unlike original Medicare, which is uncapped.
So if you went that route, an Advantage plan, you have a disability, you're 60, let's say. When you turn 65, can you then still use that MediGap open enrollment 6-month period to switch back to traditional if you want to?
Yes, when you turn 65, if you have Medicare by way of disability, when you turn 65, that's your golden opportunity to purchase a Medicare supplement plan without any questions about your insurability, and you can't be price discriminated against.
Okay, good.
So for clients who we help that are younger than 65, we always set really detailed reminders and follow up with them systematically as they approach 65 to make sure that we can discuss Medicare supplement with them.
Good, good. So we talked a bit about pricing from MediGap policies. Are insurance companies allowed to consider in pricing your policy how much you've actually used it, how much they've had to pay out of pocket? Like if I'm a big user of the supplement because I've had a lot of health issues, can they increase my costs for that reason alone?
No, they cannot increase your individual costs as a result of your utilization of the
Okay.
plan. Now, insurance is based on the law of large numbers, though. So if many people in the pool are utilizing their plan more, then you would probably see an increase in premiums for all subscribers to that plan.
Right.
And
right.
so that's also something else to consider when choosing Medicare supplement is what type of rate, attained age, community rating. These are all things I write about. We don't have to get into the details of that, but there are differences across those rating types. And it's something our advisors speak with when you're considering Medicare supplement.
Okay. I'm just looking at the chat because there's some great questions. One person wants to know, let's assume you do have Medigap, you have a plan N, and you want to switch to a plan G.
Sure.
Can you do that, and are you going to face that medical underwriting issue if you try to make that change?
Yeah, in many states you would.
Okay.
You would be subject to questions about your recent health history. There are a couple states here that actually allow you to make that switch without questions about insurability. An example of one would be Washington State. So in Washington State, you can actually move from Medigap plan letter N to plan letter G without questions about your insurability.
Huh.
But in many states, you would be subject to questions about your recent health history. In contrast, to go from plan letter G to plan letter N, because you're losing benefits, you may not have to answer questions about your health history.
Oh, okay, because they're insuring less, so to speak. I want to talk about N, but before we move to it, is the same true if you want to move from F to G? Same kind of issue with medical underwriting?
For moving from plan letter F to plan letter G, you may have to answer. Would just need to know more about the situation here. You probably will have to answer questions about your health history. With that said, some insurance companies might be willing to take you from their plan letter F to plan letter G without questions about your health history.
Okay.
And we actually recommend that all the time. If someone isn't insurable because of their health history and they can't get the absolute lowest cost plan letter G, we still may advise them to call the insurance company where they have a plan letter F and request that they go to plan letter G if it would be right, because plan letter F and G are identical except for the Part B annual deductible, which is $257.
So one thing, so the plan N, you've got the co-pays, which I think are right now are $20 for a doctor visit, and maybe there's a $50 copay for different kinds of visits, I think. But there's also this, you could be responsible for those excess charges.
Yeah.
Can you explain, one, what that is, and two, how concerned should someone be about those excess charges if they're considering plan N?
So excess charges are quite rare as a rule, and some states prohibit providers from passing on excess charges. There are 8 states in particular that prohibit them.
Okay.
I believe it's 8. But in those states where excess charges are allowed, it means that the providers can pass on an excess fee in addition to the Medicare assigned amount. And that can be up to 15% under federal law. So if you have a $50,000 hospital bill, for example, and the provider passes on an excess amount, And some famous institutions are notorious for passing on these excess charges. Then on that $50,000 bill, they can charge you an excess $7,500. And if you have plan letter N and your state allows those excess charges, then you would owe an additional $7,500. Under plan letter G or F, the insurance company would have to eat the $7,500.
Okay. So it just depends on your circumstances, but it could be a pretty significant issue.
It could be. And so there, we would want to know what providers you go to. What providers would you want to see if you developed a chronic condition or something really serious?
Okay.
Like, would you want to go to MD Anderson, for example, or the Mayo Clinic?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you referencing the Mayo Clinic in your book. One person asked about Calpers Medicare supplement versus MediGap plans. Are you familiar with Calpers and the difference, and is one preferable?
So Calpers is for California public retirees, and Calpers reimburses your Medicare Part B premium. It even reimburses, if you're a high earner, Calpers even reimburses your income-related monthly adjustment amount.
Well, that's
we wouldn't
nice.
want to see you come off of that coverage.
No. So I guess if you're on Calpers, you should just stick with it.
Yes.
For your
they have some
coverage.
great options. They have 3 different plans, and I would choose one of those 3 plans, and that way you get the Part B reimbursement from the state of California.
Okay. So we talked about TriCare for Life and that it serves as supplemental insurance. One viewer wants to know, is there ever a situation where you should buy a MediGap policy even though you have TriCare for Life, or is that just almost never happen?
No.
Okay.
No. You absolutely should not purchase a Medicare supplement plan if you have TriCare for Life. Instead, you will receive a $0 Medicare supplement plan, a $0 premium Medicare supplement plan from the government by virtue of having served our country. So
I often get asked, Rob, how did you go from being a lawyer to being a YouTuber? Well, Dave wants to know how you, Ari, went from being a lawyer to into the Medicare business.
For me, there were 2 reasons. Well, there were 3, but let me go through the first 2. Number 1 is my mom. I watched my mom sign up for Medicare in 2019 and quickly learned that she was subject to a 20% lifetime late enrollment penalty because she hadn't acted timely. And in fact, she'd been uninsured during that time because she was self-employed, and that coverage wasn't creditable for the purpose of delaying Medicare. So that's number 1. My mom easily could have declared medical bankruptcy as a result of all the costs she racked up when she ought to have started Medicare. And I write about that in the introduction to the book. The second reason is my dad. My dad was a physician, and as smart as he was, he lived in Israel and thought that he didn't need to sign up for Medicare. He loved to travel. He was very cost conscious, and he just didn't think that he would ever use it, even though he was back and forth to the States quite a bit. And so in the first 6 months of starting Chapter, my dad developed a hernia, and I'd been on him. Abba, you need to sign up for Medicare. It's important you sign up for Medicare. It's something that you've paid into when you lived in the United States already. But he didn't sign up for Medicare, so he had a hernia, and he thought, I'll wait till I get home to Israel in order to treat this because they have national health care, and it's more affordable in Israel. And he died on the flight home 90 minutes outside Tel Aviv because his hernia ruptured. And it's not just about having the most cost-effective plan. When someone is really sick, they're not going to care about the number of zeros in their bank account. What they're really going to care about is whether they can get the health care that they need when they need it. Yeah.
Well, for someone living overseas when they turn 65 and they don't have plans to move back, maybe they will, should they sign up for Medicare? I mean, how does that work if you don't live in the United States?
It's going to depend on the country where they're residing, that they're in. So for those expats, it's going to depend on whether your country's national health insurance program is considered creditable for the purpose of delaying Medicare, or whether you're still working in that country, or whether you have a private insurance plan.
Okay. All right.
Is that we just need to know more about which
Yeah,
country
no, that's good.
we're talking about.
All right. Let's talk just a bit about Part D. And this actually came up in the context of TriCare for Life, which covers medications. But are there situations where someone could be on a medication that TriCare for Life doesn't cover? And therefore, maybe a Plan D policy might make sense, or does that just doesn't work that way?
The TriCare for Life prescription plans are very comprehensive. So
Okay.
I have not myself seen an example of someone switching off their TriCare for Life prescription drug coverage.
Okay.
It's excellent prescription insurance.
So with Part D, is it just a function of listing out all your medications and then finding out which plans cover all of those medications and then picking the lowest cost, or is it more, I don't know, is it more complicated than that?
No, it's not more complicated than that, but someone needs to do it every year because your prescriptions might be changing, your pharmacy preferences might be changing, and the way the plan covers your prescriptions may have changed. And it's very important that the plan that you select cover all of your prescriptions. If it doesn't cover one of your particular prescriptions, then that prescription is not subject to the maximum out-of-pocket cap on Medicare Part D, which is $2,100 for next year.
So what happens if you've got a good drug policy, but you have to go on a new drug that's not covered by your policy? Are you just sort of out of luck until you can switch plans during open enrollment, or?
No, we need to fight for a prior authorization. So we know each Part D insurance company's cost containment techniques, because prior authorization is another type of cost containment technique. And we will work with your doctor in order to submit the prior authorization form so that way we can get an exception to have that medication covered. And we're very successful in doing that.
I didn't know that was a possibility. Okay.
It varies insurance company by insurance company. And so we know each insurance company's prior authorization playbook inside and out.
All right. When do, I don't know if they call them formularies, if I've got the word right, but when do the insurance companies publish, like for 2026? When will we know what all of the different insurance policies cover and costs and everything?
So we'll know in early October, but right now, for your viewers who are already on Medicare, they should have received their annual notice of change. They should have received it last week. We're filming on September 26th, so you should have received it last week or perhaps earlier this week. And it will describe how your plan will change for next year. What it won't describe is how your plan compares to anything else for you to consider. So the time for you to shop your coverage is from October 15th to December 7th, once all the 2026 plan information is out.
So I got a couple questions about IRMAA, and one of the frustrating things is that they look 2 years back for your modified adjusted gross income. So one viewer is saying, okay, well, we're in 2025. How can I know what the IRMAA brackets will be 2 years from now, so that I can plan this year and maybe adjust my taxable income if I have some control over it?
Yep.
Is that even possible?
Let's take a step back and talk about what IRMAA is broadly, and then we can answer this specific question about planning. IRMAA stands for Income Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. That's the government's acronym for it is IRMAA. Now, this is a 2-year look back. So for this year, the government is looking at your 2023 tax return. And if you are a solo filer and you earned more than $106,000 modified adjusted gross income, or if you're a joint filer and you and your spouse earned more than $212,000 modified adjusted gross income, then you are subject to a graduated surcharge on your Medicare Part B and Part D. But what if the government is looking at stale information? So if you've had a life-changing event, and the two most common are work stoppage or work reduction, then you can appeal your IRMAA and instead request that the government look at a more recent year. For example, 2024, or your anticipated modified adjusted gross for 2025. So now to get to this question about planning. We don't know what next year's IRMAA thresholds are going to be yet. But this year's brackets are a pretty good approximation of who will be subject to it for next year or for 2 years down the road. And maybe you add a 5 to 10% riser on it, but you can use it roughly as a guide to know whether you're going to be subject to IRMAA or not. And again, it is graduated. So if you're just a little bit over 212K, for example, then you just owe a little bit of a surcharge on Part B and Part D. If you're a lot of money over, for example, if you earned $1 million, then the surcharges are much higher.
Okay. And the brackets just get adjusted by CPI, by inflation every year?
I think it's CPI, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Do we know the 2026 costs yet for like Part B, and
Not yet.
when do they publish that?
Early October, but we have seen the administration, it depends. We have seen it published as late as the 3rd week of October.
Oh, really? Okay.
It should be out fairly soon, though. We should know in a week or two. And I've seen estimates of like $205 to $210 per month for Medicare Part B. And right now it's at $185.
Yeah.
So that would be a pretty significant increase.
Okay.
So hopefully it's lower than that.
So I got a number of questions from folks that are trying to help a parent with their Medicare, and the parent lives 500 miles away, 1,000 miles away. They're trying to figure out how to get online, if they can get online access to their Medicare account, and just how they can help, their parent.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of guidance on that, or are there any tips you could provide, or ways that you've seen other people help distant, relatives with all of this?
Yeah. So as an adult child who helps my mom with her health coverage selection, this is near and dear to my heart. And what I would recommend doing is setting up a conference call with your parents if you live in a different state, or you can't just go over and hold the call with them, and then calling chapter together in order for us to help you figure out what your parent has. Or going to Medicare.gov and doing it is a great option too. Alternatively, if you have power of attorney, then we can work with you directly.
Okay. You can create an account on Medicare.gov, I think.
Yes.
Right.
And you can also appoint an authorized representative. So
Okay.
your parents can appoint you as their authorized representative, even if you don't have full power of attorney.
And what does that allow you to do as an authorized representative? Talk to Medicare about their situation?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. We're getting near the end of my questions. I appreciate you staying in here with us.
No, we have 2.5 hours.
Well, we can keep going. There's more here too. In fact, here's one. My wife will have a premium-free Medicare Advantage plan through her state-provided insurance. Is there a reason we would want to not choose the Advantage plan and purchase MediGap?
It depends on the state where you live. Some of these plans can be very generous, and you should keep them. Illinois would be an example of a state retiree plan that's quite generous and can work super well, even though it's a Medicare Advantage plan. In other states, in the Southeast, for example, these Medicare Advantage plans don't cover much beyond original Medicare. In fact, they leave you paying 20% coinsurance for visits to the doctor or outpatient surgeries. And in that situation, it would be something to consider. You would want to consider that state-provided Medicare Advantage plan versus other options, and it would be worthwhile to shop it. So I've definitely seen state retiree plans in the Southeast that just aren't very generous, because Medicare Advantage is pay-as-you-go insurance. So when you go to the doctor, you'll frequently have copays. When you need more care, you might have coinsurance. If you're hospitalized, you'll have a deductible. So it really depends on your healthcare utilization and how often you anticipate going to the doctor to see whether it's a good value in comparison to Medicare Supplement or a different Medicare Advantage plan.
Okay. I'm just going to read some questions here. One person
Sure.
said, my broker told me they are charging me a fee for Part D plans. Does Chapter charge a fee for Part D plans?
Absolutely not. And I have never heard of an advisory charging a fee to help someone shop their Part D plan.
I wonder if that's because insurance companies have largely stopped paying commissions on Part D. They're effectively, I don't know, the broker's charging a fee to help this person find a Part D. Is that legal? Can you do that?
Broadly speaking, it's illegal for Medicare advisors to charge you.
Yeah.
The industry is set up to be consultative,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that you're working with someone who's independent and unbiased, because the person that you're working with can still be beholden to a single insurance company or
Yeah.
maybe 2 or 3 insurance companies.
Okay. This one comes from Jay. Should military vets not on TriCare still register for Medicare at 65, even though they have VA health benefits?
I think the answer is yes. Here's why. The only people who the only veterans who wouldn't want to take Part B are those who use the VA for 100% of their services and don't anticipate going outside the VA. But if you do think that you might need to go outside the VA at some point for whatever reason, then you're going to want to have Medicare Part B. Otherwise, you're restricted to the VA. And if you change your mind later on and you don't start Part B, guess what? Even though you're a veteran, you would still owe a late enrollment penalty for Part B if you waited more than 12 months to sign up. Now,
Okay.
your VA coverage would be considered creditable for the purpose of prescriptions. So you wouldn't owe a Part D late enrollment penalty. But
Yeah.
the Part B late enrollment penalty is pretty significant. And I've seen this happen all the time with vets. Sometimes they want to go outside the VA.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, question from Bart. For someone with a HSA, could a high deductible, we haven't talked about this, a high deductible Plan G be better than regular Plan G? He says, concerned that straight Plan G might not allow me to claim enough expenses to drain the HSA. That's kind of interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
That is really interesting. I've never thought about it from that perspective. I would say let's do the math. It's going to depend on your utilization. In some states, high deductible Plan Gs make a lot of sense. For example, New York State, because standard Plan G is so expensive in New York State that high deductible Plan G can be a pretty good value depending on your healthcare utilization.
What premiums, what Medicare premiums can you pay from an HSA?
You can pay for any qualified medical expense from your health savings account, except your MediGap premium. You can't use your HSA to pay for your MediGap premium. You can even use it to pay for your income-related monthly adjustment amount if you're a high earner.
All right. So anything other than the MediGap, that premium, for some reason, the powers that be decided you can't use your HSA for that. Okay. Good. All right. I'll ask more questions as they're asked in the chat. So for those listening, watching this live, if you want to ask more questions, I've got my eye on it. Just tag me at Rob Berger, because it shows up in bright orange. Until then, just some questions about Chapter. I think generally people are concerned about whether, not so much Chapter specifically, but brokers in general, are they really looking out for the best interest of their clients, or are they directing people towards certain policies because they earn more commissions? So my question for you is, how does Chapter make money? Number one. And then number two, how do you, at sort of a company level, how do you make sure all the advisors that are actually the folks talking with the clients, right, are doing the right thing, when they're on the phone, and, corporate management's not listening in? How do you make sure they're doing the right thing for your clients?
Chapter earns revenue from insurance companies, and it doesn't matter which insurance company you choose. Our advisors are blinded as to which plans Chapter earns revenue from and which ones we don't. So that means that when our advisors are using our platform, the only thing that they're focused on are your 3 Ps, and then matching you with the single best fitting plan for your needs based on those 3 Ps in discussion with you. So the North Star is acting in your best interest. And I would encourage people to go and read our CEO's testimony in front of the Senate Finance Committee from last October about this very problem in the industry and how there is no duty in the Medicare industry to act in the client's best interest, to act in the patient's best interest, and what a problem that poses.
Does chapter advisors ever recommend a policy that results in no commissions for chapter? You don't get paid anything.
Of course, it happens all the time. Now, most insurance companies, we earn revenue from. In the event that the plan that you're considering isn't one that we earn revenue from, guess what? We will help you sign up for that plan, and then we will provide year-round ongoing support for that coverage. It does not matter whether we earn revenue from the plan or not. And doing the right thing time and again has paid for itself so many times over the last 66 years. So that will always be our North Star.
Okay. Let me go back to the chat. So this one, I received my explanation of changes or notice of changes for Part D and for 2026. It seems like they pivoted from a fixed copay for my Tier 3 medication to a 15% of manufacturer cost. Okay, maybe you could explain what all that means. And the question is that how all Part D plans are going to now work going forward?
So this question is going to get, the answer to this question could get technical very quickly. Let me take a step back. The initial deductible for Part D plans for 2026 is approximately $600 for next year. Don't quote me, it's not exactly $600, but it's around $600. Okay. Then you're in the initial coverage phase of the plan once you hit that deductible. That's going to depend on the types of prescriptions that you take and where you get those prescriptions filled. Broadly speaking, generics aren't even subject to that deductible, though. You're getting pre-deductible coverage under many Part D prescription plans. So what a Tier 3 medication is a Tier 3 medication is a brand name medication. So we're talking about a more expensive medication, one that would be subject to that deductible. And also, you'd probably have some cost sharing. So now we have to talk about how that cost sharing would work as we move through the coverage phases under your Part D plan. The good news is that as long as your prescriptions are covered under the Part D plan of your choosing, then they are subject to that maximum annual out-of-pocket cap of $2,100 for next year. So that's what we spend so much time talking through with you. What prescriptions are you taking? What prescriptions do you anticipate taking? Or do you fear you might be prescribed? And then we go through what your cost sharing would be. Because, Rob, as you mentioned a few questions ago, it's actually a simple math problem as to which Part D plan you should be on. It's the premium for the plan plus your copays for the prescriptions that you take. Okay.
Well, what about this business of how'd they put it? Let me go back to it here. I got to find it again.
Sure. And while you do that, I'm going to grab a quick sip of water.
Absolutely. You guys have asked great questions, but they're coming in so fast now. Oh, here it is. All right. When he comes back, I've got it. I hope this has been helpful for everyone. One of the things I've asked, and you may have heard this before, but is if you end up calling Chapter and you work with them, whether you buy through them or not, would you please send me an email letting me know the good, the bad, the ugly, what you liked, what you didn't like? Because I'm not 65 yet, even though I look like I look like I've been on Medicare for at least 6 years. I get that, but I'm not. So this is one of the few that I've worked with, few companies, or maybe the only company I've worked with that I haven't actually personally used. And so, yeah, I'd like to hear from you. So far, the feedback I've gotten has been largely positive. Okay.
Ari is while back. I was getting a sip of water, I also had some time to scan the chat. Can I address some of these questions? First, yeah. Bob Ferrari asks, will Chapter assign me an advisor specifically expert on my state? and mentions Massachusetts. And the answer is yes. Massachusetts is a special snowflake. Now, remember, MediGap is standardized under federal law, but Massachusetts just calls their MediGap plans by something else. So in Medicare, in Massachusetts, a Medicare Supplement 1A plan is actually the lookalike version of Plan G. The Commonwealth just calls it by a different name.
I spent 3 years there in law school, and that all makes sense to me. I could see them doing that. So here's the one comment we were discussing where they said that Tier 3 is going from a fixed copay to 15% of manufacturer cost. I get that doesn't change the out-of-pocket maximum.
Yes.
But have you heard of the copay piece being fixed
Shifting.
copay versus a percent?
Yes. So and again, this is going to depend on the Part D plan, and the plans vary county by county across the United States. But this probably means it will be more expensive. 15% will likely be more expensive than the fixed copay you previously owed for the Tier 3 medication. And we don't know what the prescription is, but I assume it didn't become a generic for the upcoming year. It's probably still a brand name. And so we'd certainly want to shop your Part D options to see if there's a plan that would cover that prescription more affordably than the plan you had this year.
Right. Okay. So another question, I guess I just wanted to confirm, since only MediGap policies can't be paid out of an HSA, does that mean that Part B and D premiums can be paid out of one's HSA? I guess the answer is yes, but want to confirm that with you. Okay.
Yes.
So here's one.
And the co-pays for your prescriptions. So
yeah. Right. And that $2,100 potential out of pocket.
Yep.
Right. I guess that's.
Yeah. Some people have tens of thousands of dollars accumulated in their HSA.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What is the difference from David? What is the difference between an HSA and an HRA that I have as a retired Ford employee, at least regarding, coverage, I guess Medicare coverage? Are you familiar with an HRA?
I am. And there are some companies, the auto manufacturers are an example. I've also heard of Shell and Exxon having these types of plans, and they're Cadillac retiree plans. And it depends on how generous they are. Some of them actually give you retiree health insurance that's secondary to Medicare. And others have now set up these types of reimbursement vehicles, HRAs. And it just means that you need to go through your plan administrator in order to choose coverage. And then Ford will provide a reimbursement to you.
Okay.
But the fine print is making sure that you follow the plan rules in order to obtain that reimbursement.
Okay. All right. Another question. Are you concerned about overutilization with Plan G that could experience premium increases in the future? I guess can what happened with Plan F happen with Plan G eventually, so that there'll be some new plan and then everyone's sort of stuck in Plan G?
It could. The reason Congress created Plan G almost a decade ago is because they were worried that if enrollees in Plan F didn't contribute anything towards their Part B annual deductible, then they would utilize more care. And so they wanted people who enrolled in Plan G to have skin in the game. And so the thinking was that if they owed their Part B annual deductible, which is $257 for this year, then they would have skin in the game. Now, I don't think $257 is enough to keep someone away from the doctor. So I don't really understand Congress's thinking there. That's okay. The question is whether there might be a new plan created in the future. And the answer is we don't know. There's no crystal ball. Right now, I haven't seen one proposed as a bill. But in terms of overutilization, if you are concerned by that, then we ought to discuss Plan N. Plan N would certainly be an option to consider, because if someone were concerned that Plan G was going to be overutilized, then having a $20 copay each time you go to the doctor would be another way of having skin in the game. Also, it may be worth considering a high deductible Plan G if you want to stay in the Medicare supplement universe.
Right. Those extra costs, then I assume the idea is it reduces the possibility of overutilization, at least in theory.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Okay. All right.
Did you? I see all the Ohio State football. Are you a big Ohio State fan? I can't tell.
OH. Yeah, I grew up in Columbus, so both my parents went to OSU, and I tell my wife every Saturday there's a party every Saturday
Every
that Ohio
Saturday.
State plays. I'm usually the only one that attends, and I'm okay with that because the worst thing that can happen. I love my family, but when Ohio State is playing, I don't want to answer questions about football. It's like, well, why did they punt? Well, because it was fourth down. All right. Then the next fourth down, they go for it. I thought they had to punt. I'm too juiced up. I can't take it. So yes, anyway, I'm a Buckeye
Rob, I
fan.
have to share this with you. So I went to the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and when I was an undergrad, Ohio State was ranked number 1, and this was the only year we were good at football. We beat Ohio State when they were the number 1 ranked team in the country and went to the Rose Bowl that year, where we were destroyed by USC.
It was a very sad day in my life, a very sad day. But yeah, it happens. Who knows what this year will hold? In fact, didn't Illinois just play Indiana? Didn't you guys just play?
I will leave the chant. I will
Okay, fair enough.
if you continue.
I actually watched that game.
Oh my gosh!
But the only reason I watched it was because Ohio State wasn't playing. So I didn't have, Yeah, well, look, we all have our.
Can we talk about
good
something
days
more
and our
interesting
bad-
like Medicare?
Yeah, sure. Okay. If I am eligible for Medicare in May of 2026, when should I first contact Chapter? Oh, there you go. That's a good question.
May of 2026. So that your time to contact us would be starting in December. I think December, as early as December, would be a great time to connect with us. I would say 6 months before you turn 65. Okay. So for someone who turned 65 this year or is turning 65 in the first half of next year. Alternatively, if you're past 65 and you're retiring before the end of the year, now's the time as well, or in the first quarter of next year.
Okay.
And then finally, if you're already on Medicare, October 15th to December 7th is the time.
All right. Let's see. Well, one person wanted to know if you're just spot on and you have no biases, when it comes to Medicare. I don't know. I'm not sure what to do with that. I mean, it's a fair question, but I'm not sure what. Are you telling us the truth? That's the question.
I think so the way I understood the question was between Medicare Supplement and Medicare Advantage, but I think they're instead talking about like Chapter as a company and whether we're truly independent and unbiased.
And what would be your answer?
The answer is 1,000%. And you can read the testimony our CEO gave in front of the Senate Finance Committee on this very subject. We'd be more than happy to share it in the chat.
All right, so here's one from Lisa. Will Chapter evaluate our current Medicare coverage, which includes Plan G and D? So I guess, one has Plan G and one has Plan D.
Part D.
Or no, I'm sorry, drugs. That's drugs. And continue to do the yearly evaluation if we didn't initially consult with Chapter. So they bought their insurance maybe through another broker or perhaps on their own. Can they still reach out to you annually about their Plan G and their drug plan?
Absolutely. Yes, we'd be delighted to help you shop your coverage for this fall. The time to do it is during the annual enrollment period, which starts October 15th. And please give us a call then.
Okay. Great question here from Roy. If I fail the medical underwriting for MediGap or find it just too expensive, are there any alternatives besides keeping my current Advantage plan?
Are there any alternatives to you? Well, yes, it would be. So if there's 2 universes for comprehensive coverage. The first universe is Medicare Supplement and a standalone prescription drug plan. The second universe is Medicare Advantage. Medicare Advantage plans are changing every year. They can even change mid-year. And there's new entrants, there's new competition. So even if you were on the best fitting plan for last year, there might be a new option available to you that would be superior for the upcoming year. So if you're in Universe 2, Medicare Advantage, let's just make sure that you're on the single best fitting Medicare Advantage plan based on your 3 Ps.
So if they can't get a MediGap policy, they still have to pretty much stick with Medicare Advantage, but they might find a plan that better fits their specific needs and costs and whatnot.
Yeah, and also we can try again. It's just because you were declined with for a Medicare supplement plan this year. For example, you may have had a knee replacement pending. If you actually completed that procedure and your knee has been replaced, then a Medicare supplement insurer may accept you in 3 to 6 months.
Okay. All right. Oh, okay, Frank. So everyone that watches this channel knows that I'm a Buckeye fan, and it's
Okay.
kind of obvious. I even put up a new, I don't know, you can't see it because we're on split screen, but I even put up I got a new addition to the whole situation. But here's the question. If Ohio State plays Michigan, who are you rooting for?
My wife's whole family went to Michigan. So I will absolutely.
Look, if you got to keep your wife happy. I get it.
That is a really tough position to be in because, especially because they'd lost like 18 out of 21 times. And so I was certainly rooting for Michigan to pull it off. But I don't need them winning like 3 or 4 years in a row.
Well, I think the last 3 they've
won.
I
want it to be pretty even. Have they won the last 3 years?
We can't beat Michigan even when we have a better team. Anyway.
Well, yeah, you won the national championship last year.
I know.
It was still a failure.
I do wonder if the new playoff framework, I mean, the game between Ohio State and Michigan will always matter.
Yes.
But truthfully, it doesn't matter as much under the new playoff scheme, in my view. It doesn't matter as much because one can lose and still go to the playoffs, as happened last year.
Right.
Anyway, does Chapter help persons with disabilities sign up for Medicare? Many nationwide agents we looked at don't because each state varies so wildly.
Signing up for Medicaid or for disability?
For Medicare. So do you help people with disabilities, presumably they're not 65,
yes,
sign up for Medicare?
Yes. So the process is going to vary state by state for signing up. And it's something that we will point you in the right direction, but it can be a lengthy process to sign up for disability and to potentially qualify. And then you have to be on disability for 24 months before you actually receive Medicare. So we can point you to your state resource. We'll send you your state's application.
Okay.
In terms of actually having that application get successfully approved, that's a whole different ballgame. And there are some people hire, for example, as you know, disability attorneys in order to fight through the system and to get the paperwork approved in order to qualify. And then it's another 24 months until they receive Medicare.
Okay. So in terms of advantage plans, supplemental plans, maybe even, I don't know, Plan D, how much does smoking versus a non-smoker affect what you pay?
It can affect the price quite a bit if the state allows questions about your smoking status. So there are states where they actually cannot discriminate against smokers. Those states are few and far between, but there are a few. And then in a state that allows price discrimination based on your smoking status, the premium can vary. I've seen it vary by as much as 10 to 20%.
Okay. All right. Another question. How many brokers does Chapter employ?
We have over 150 licensed Medicare advisors, and many of our advisors are licensed nationwide. So wherever you live, we can help you, including the District of Columbia. And even if the person that you're speaking to doesn't hold the license in the state where you live, they will get you to someone on our team who can help.
What does one have to do?
But you're always speaking to a real person. You're always speaking to someone who's been licensed and appointed and gone through our training and ramping program before we let them speak to clients.
What does one have to do to become a licensed Medicare insurance broker? If that's even the right
that's it. That's absolutely the right terminology. So there are over 200,000 people in this country with their health insurance license, actually. The process for getting your health insurance license is you take a state exam, oftentimes, and there's you can be licensed for life insurance or for health. And so you have to get appointed in the state where you reside. Then there's ongoing annual training. You have to do that as well in order to remain in compliance. And then each insurance company has their own annual training that you would have to take in order to offer that insurance company's products. So it is quite arduous, and we spend a lot of time every summer making sure that our advisors are up to date on all the recent rules and regulations, and that they have all the licenses and appointments for the state and also for each insurance company.
Okay. This next question, we may have alluded to it at the very beginning, but if money were no object and all other things being equal, am I correct that you would view the MediGap as the preferred choice over an Advantage plan because it's comprehensive and there's no networks to deal with?
Yeah, I say that outright in the book.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if you can afford it, MediGap is the way to go. And if you're on fixed income, then Medicare Advantage would still be having straight original Medicare because you'd still have maximum out-of-pocket protection. But if you can afford it, yes, MediGap and a standalone prescription drug plan would be my choice.
So this is a question from I say J, it's JA. If someone calls Chapter, what's that experience look like? Are they on the phone? Is it a Zoom call? How long does it take? What's the experience like?
It's a one-on-one 45-minute phone conversation, which starts with your 3 Ps, your providers, your prescriptions, your priorities. Then we talk about the process for signing up for Medicare. We help you do it. It's fast, safe, and secure if you do it through your online Social Security account. And if you don't have one set up, we'll encourage you to create one. Second, we talk about what Medicare covers, what it doesn't cover. And then we talk about your options for additional coverage. And finally, we help narrow to a short list of plans to discuss with you using our platform, which is where we enter your 3 Ps and helps us evaluate the single best fitting plan for you.
Is this a video call?
It's a phone call.
Like this was okay. So they can't see your screen or your platform visually. This is just a regular phone call.
It's a phone call, yes.
Okay.
And it's something our advisors are talking about what they're seeing on their screen and sharing that with you over the phone.
Okay.
Then we help you submit all the paperwork for the insurance company that you choose. And we provide year-round ongoing support from our member advocate team. So you can at any time call the chapter Medicare advisor that you worked with, or you can call our member advocate team. So you're supported by 2 teams. If you misplace your ID card, we'll help you get another. If you have a question about IRMAA, we can help you appeal it. If you have a question about a copay, you're being assessed at the pharmacist. We'll see if they're charging you the right amount. And if they're not, we'll get to the bottom of it. So you don't have to call the insurance company. Instead, you call the chapter member advocate team, and we will fight on your behalf to make sure that your Medicare is working for you.
So for most folks, is that 45-minute call, that's it? They're done in terms of at least the initial process, or does it usually take more than one phone call to get all this paperwork done and everything figured out?
It can certainly take more than one phone call. So you mentioned someone turning 65 in May. Well, if someone's turning 65 in May, their initial enrollment period doesn't begin until February. So we're going to give them an overview of Medicare now. And then in February, we're going to help them actually apply to enroll in Medicare. And at that point in time, likely talk about their options for additional coverage. So it just depends on the client's circumstances.
Okay. Let's see. So Bob wanted me to explain the business relationship, if any, between you and Chapter. Yeah, so if you call the Chapter number and you work through them to get insurance, I get a fee. My fee is not based on anything in terms of your relationship with Chapter, in terms of the type of insurance you get. It doesn't matter if it's Advantage, MediGap, Part D. I don't have any visibility into any of that at all. And I don't know who called. I don't know who signed up. I have no personally identifiable information about anyone. Yeah, so that's it. It's pretty much, the affiliate relationships I have all sort of work that way. The only thing that's different with Chapter is that it's primarily through a phone call rather than just clicking a link and getting a budget app. Most of my, not that you need to know this, Ari, but most of my affiliates, in fact, really all of them except Chapter, are 99% of them are apps, retirement planning apps, budget apps.
Sure.
I just made a decision for this channel. I'm not going to promote bank accounts for the most part, or credit cards or brokers. There's a lot of reasons for that, but part of it's just, it's too much of a hassle.
Right.
if I'm being totally honest. So yeah, and I think Bob's question is a good one. You should understand how people make money because because it affects incentives. So some people might listen to my channel and say, "Oh, you make some money. I don't want anything to do with you." Okay, I'm fair with that. That's a valid. I don't know if it's valid, but it's a choice people can make. Yeah, that's the relationship. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and also people should go to Medicare.gov. Go to Medicare.gov and evaluate your options on Medicare.gov as well. And I think you're going to have a much better experience working with Chapter. Still, Medicare.gov is also a free resource that's available to you. So if someone wants somewhere to click, they can go to the government's website.
Well, one thing, Ari, that I mentioned when you stepped away, and you may have heard some of it, but Chapter is the only affiliate relationship I have with a product, service, whatever, that I haven't personally used. And I haven't used it because I'm not old enough to use it.
Right.
But I've told my viewers, I've told them in this video and also in the newsletter, if they call Chapter, whether they use them or not, please shoot me an email with their feedback, because I want to hear from them on whether the experience was good, bad, could have been better, was great, whatever. Okay, let's see.
Let me say one more thing, Rob. You can also read our reviews. You can go to askchapter.org/reviews, and you can read, I think there's almost 5,000 5-star reviews, and see the type of experience we've given people as we help them with their Medicare. By all means, you should compare us to anyone else.
I think the only criticism I have received so far, and I don't have any details, and I had to sort of interpret, was someone trying to reach Chapter with an issue, not with Chapter, but like with their insurance company. Like they'd already signed up through Chapter and they were calling maybe the advocate. I think they were having trouble getting through.
Would you forward me?
What's that?
Please forward that to me.
So well, I think that was really it. There's really nothing to forward to you. I mean, I think it was that simple. Okay.
Yes, I want all the, and I'm going to come back and read the comments. So
yeah,
if someone wants to leave a comment, by all means. But again, if they reach out to you by email, then I can actually go back and share the client feedback with our advisory leadership team. And we have a process for reviewing the feedback and making sure that we did the right thing each and every time. And if we didn't, I'll be the first person to acknowledge what we could have done differently and make sure we fix it.
Well, for folks listening then, if you want to send me something that you want me to send on to Chapter, I won't send anything on to Chapter that's got personally identifiable information unless you explicitly ask me to. But I'm happy to do that. One person asked, how does Chapter know that someone called because of me? And the answer is, the phone number you see on the screen is unique to just me. It's the phone number. Yeah, it's unique. Okay. Can you ask if Chapter can help? Oh, we got that one.
Yes, the answer is absolutely, Mike.
Yeah. So yeah, they can help, but let me just finish the question so people know. Can you ask Chapter if they can help a person with disabilities that have already qualified for Medicare? Okay, that's a different question. They already had SSDI for 24 months. They've qualified for Medicare, but I take it they're not on Medicare. Can you help them in that situation, or are you still basically sending them to the state agency that's responsible for this sort of situation?
I read Mike's question a little differently.
I may have gotten it wrong.
If someone's received cash disability benefits for 24 months, then they automatically receive Medicare. And it can be even 24 non-consecutive months. So if you had disability for a year and then you have it for another year, you've qualified for Medicare. And we can absolutely help these. We can absolutely help you review your options for additional coverage.
Okay, good. All right. I mean, I think I've gone through my 9 pages.
Yeah.
Ari, what key question were you absolutely terrified I would ask you that I haven't asked you?
I think you only sent me 5 in advance.
Yeah.
You were like, what inspired you to get into Medicare? Can you talk a little bit about Medicare Part A and Part B? And so I had no idea that you had so much research.
Oh yeah, I kept the good stuff back. I gave him sort of a heads up as to where I was headed, but no, I kept all the good stuff back. Are there plans, like are there plans that you'll have available, your database of plans that you, whether it's Advantage or MediGap or whatever, is your database of plans that you can talk to people about larger than other brokers? Or do all the brokers have the same database of plans that they can cover?
They don't. They really don't. So if you're working with a local advisor, totally well-intentioned, they probably don't have the tools at their fingertips in order to help you evaluate every insurance company and every plan option. You should ask, if you're working with a local advisor or someone else, just ask them what tools they're using to help you sort through your 3 Ps and find the single best fitting plan. I bet you at the end of the day, the answer is going to be something like Medicare.gov. Go to Medicare.gov yourself and see that you can't even enter your doctor and see what plans they accept on Medicare.gov.
Yeah. All right. So here's a question.
It's proprietary. We had to build it ourselves from scratch. And it was a very complicated engineering problem that took a couple years.
Okay. I'll read a question that I don't understand. HICAP, HICAP, HICAP comparison with chapter. Question. Maybe already asked and I missed it. I'm not even sure what that question means, so I'm not smart enough to understand.
So I just Googled it. The HICAP is the California Department of Aging.
Okay.
So this is probably a volunteer department that is set up to help you evaluate your options. And again, the question for the California Department of Aging, which is mainly staffed by volunteers, and again, they're really trying to do the right thing, would be what tools are you using while I'm speaking with you to help me compare all my options? And I would guess that the employees or volunteers at the California Department of Aging are using some form of, are using Medicare.gov, which is something that you can see the limitations of Medicare.gov just by going there yourself right now.
Yeah. I will say though, I did find it useful because I got to see the types of plans, whether it's MediGap or Advantage.
Yes.
And just price ranges. And, you know, again, it may not be as comprehensive as other databases, particularly maybe for MediGap from what I read. But I did find it useful just to get a feel for like what to expect.
Everyone here should create their Medicare.gov account, because through your Medicare.gov account, you can make sure you don't miss a premium from Uncle Sam. If you're not yet taking Social Security, then the government is invoicing you quarterly for your Medicare, and you can easily pay that through Medicare.gov. And you can also set up Medicare Easy Pay so that your Part B premiums are withdrawn automatically from your bank account until you take Social Security.
Are you able to, and is there any reason to create a Medicare.gov account before you're 65 or before you start the enrollment process?
You actually won't be able to. You need a Medicare number in order to create your Medicare.gov account.
Frank wants to know, and I know we're at 2 hours, and I promised you 2 hours, but what are some examples of an appealable IRMAA claim?
I wish I could screen share, because then I could actually show you the form and walk you through it. It's a 3-page form.
I've shown that form before in past videos.
Yes, that's great. And it's a 3-page form. So you just need a life-changing event. The most common life-changing events are work stoppage, work reduction, and sadly, the third most common is divorce. Marriage is also one of them, though. So if you have one of those 8 life-changing events, then you would just list the modified adjusted gross income that you want the government to look at instead of the 2-year look back. So remember, the government's looking, oh, awesome. All right, you want to go through it?
Sure, why not? Let's see here. There
All
you
right,
go.
cool. So on page 1 of Form 44, this is SSA Form 44 that Rob has up. You can easily Google and find it online, and you would just want to submit this if you have a life-changing event and it changed which bracket you fall into. So Rob, if you go to page 2.
Page 2.
Oh, wait. Oh, okay, cool. Yes. So those are the brackets that you have there. Scroll
Up or down?
down.
Back to, oh, here we go.
Okay. So in step 1, you choose the life-changing event.
All right.
In step 2, you put your modified adjusted gross income for the year you want the government to look at. So for this year, people would put 2024 or 2025. And yes, you can even put your anticipated income for 2025. Step 3 would be if you had another change. So oftentimes we don't see people put anything for step 3, but just know if, for example, in 2024, you changed brackets and then in 2025 you changed again, you could put that under step 3. Then in step 4, this is just a disclaimer that they can come back and ask you for documentation. I haven't seen them come and ask for documentation, but they could. And also know that they will reconcile this form. So if your estimation is inaccurate, they will come back and charge you for what you should have owed had you properly listed your modified adjusted gross income. Then you sign under penalty of perjury and you return it to your local Social Security Administration. You can send it by certified email, you can send it by certified mail, or you can fax it to your local office or drop it off in person, and you should receive an answer within 4 to 6 weeks.
I'll drop a link to that PDF in the chat, which is a link to the SSA website. Is it hard to get it adjusted?
No, but people just don't do it. They don't know that they can. So I appreciate you screen sharing it, because you can get your IRMAA if you have a life-changing event and it changes which IRMAA bracket you fall into, or it can remove it entirely. We're talking about savings of $10,000 to $12,000 per couple per year.
Well, I would think it happens a lot where someone's making a lot of money at their job and then they just retire.
Yes.
And all that income goes away.
Yes.
Yeah. That seems sort of kind of maybe the common thing. Cheryl says, should I send in the form with the application, or wait until I get the quote for the cost of the insurance? I was told to wait until I was accepted into the insurance plan before sending this form in.
All right. So Cheryl raises a really good point. So when someone signs up for Medicare, the government sends them a notice that says, you owe us the standard Part B premium, which is $185 per month for this year. 2 to 4 weeks later, the government sends them another notice that says, we looked at your tax return from 2 years ago, and we realized that you're a high earner, and now we're coming back to collect that amount. So wait until you get that second invoice from the government if you're a high earner, and at that point in time, that would be when you ought to appeal if you have a life-changing event.
Good. One person says, we did this in 23. We were quickly approved and we didn't have to pay IRMAA due to retirement. So apparently it works. That's great. Well, Ari, I can't thank you enough for your time. It's been wonderful. I've learned a ton. Yeah, I just appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you so much for having me on your channel, Rob. Thank you to your viewers for their excellent questions. And whatever you do, it's just important for you to review your coverage if you're already on Medicare, and the time to do it is from October 15th to December 7th.
Great. All right. I guess the only thing to add is go Buckeyes.
No, go Fighting Illini.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Have a good one. All right, everybody. Hopefully you found that helpful. I learned a lot. Frankly, I learned a lot from your questions, because I researched all these questions. I mean, I didn't have the answers to all of them, but it was a great learning experience for me. So hopefully you found this helpful. Obviously, as Ari mentioned, he's going to be looking back through the chat. You can leave comments with questions below the video. and I'll keep an eye on that as well to help you out any way I can. And frankly, whether you end up calling Chapter or someone else, to me, the most important thing is that you're educated enough about this so that you can ask good questions of whoever you're working with. I think that's super important. So anyway, appreciate everybody. Thanks for joining today. And remember, until next time, the best thing money can buy is financial freedom. Have a good one.